Welcome to Vauxhall, a podcast production of Learned and Laughter. This episode of Vauxhall features a discussion on wastewater management with engineer Solomon Noy. Vauxhall's discussions on governance are produced in partnership with Empowering Good Governance, also known as Egg Magazine, an online publication to be found at www.eggmagazine.net. That is www.eggmagazine.net. This episode's guest, Engineer Solomon Noy, is the Director of Waste Management for the Accra Metropolitan Assembly. Mr. Noy started his education at the Accra'S School of Hygiene and continued to pursue a degree in environmental science at KNUST. He went on to pursue a master's degree in water and sanitation engineering. Thereafter, Engineer Noy gained a scholarship to study at the Institute of Hydraulic Engineering in the Netherlands. He graduated with a double master's in water and sanitation engineering, as well as sanitary engineering. Solomon Noy has been in active public service for 22 years. We now join Ekem Amunulatson, the host and producer of Vauxhall, with his guest, Engineer Solomon Noy.
So you could actually argue that one of the most important parts of a water system was given to the weakest unit of governance.
That is
so
it.
Even though the idea was that decentralization would make everything efficient and it would improve the local governance system, rather the weight was too much for the local government to handle.
Even in terms of expertise, me sitting here, because I've told you my background, I started from the scratch. So I have the enthusiasm, the dedication, and commitment. Otherwise, as a sanitary engineer, I'm not being paid as what I'm supposed to be paid.
Yeah, based on your experience.
Exactly. As a sanitary engineer with that expertise,
exactly.
I shouldn't be taking, I know what my peers and colleagues are taking. I'm a full consultant. Local government cannot pay that. You understand? Then secondly, what do we call? When you take water consumption, I was telling you, any water that you consume, 80% of that water goes as waste. So why would Ghana Water be dealing with just 20% of the totality if we want to close in the loop on wastewater or water management? Only 20% is what we consume. The rest goes as waste, 80%. And that is the chunk that has been shifted to the local authorities, and they do not have the needed revenue to support the management based on hiring of experts to be able to manage, and as a result, we are not seeing what we are supposed to see in terms of wastewater management.
So let's spend a little time problem solving. What are some of the solutions that, were the money to be there, it could be done? And given that the money is not there, what is actually suffering? What is actually not being achieved that you would hope gets achieved were there to be resources?
Yes, so first the structures must be put in place. I'm of the view that if we can put in structures at the local authority level where there will be, there are waste management departments. So the waste management department must be well resourced. If possible, experts like my type and other experts that we need, mechanical engineers, hydraulic engineers, and all the good experts in water management must be put under some bracket that will not be affected by the conditions of service of the current local government system. That is what will attract good experts to come into the waste management departments of the metropolitan assemblies to be able to make sure that they manage these systems. If that is not done, no expert worth its salt will be ready to come and sacrifice for the unrealistic conditions of service that currently pertain. And a resultant effect is that government will end up spending 3 times, 4 times what it would have spent in getting the water treated. Because the disease burden would have gone down if you treat the water well, and then communicable diseases are eliminated. You will save hard currency to import drugs to come and be fighting epidemics. Because don't forget, once there is flooding, all this waste that has been channeled into the waste, the drains, all the sewer manholes, all the septic tanks, there is flooding. So they will all be submerged with water. Then the fecal matter will also come up and mix with the flooded water. And this flooded water will be transported into people's homes. Once they are transported into people's homes, when they are living back, they leave the germs in their homes. And as a result, you will be sitting on time bomb. But should we have all these treatment systems well in place? Even when it's flooding, you are very sure there will not be the infiltration of contamination into the flooded water.
So if I heard you properly, you are almost like you are suggesting that there be almost like a governance and advisory services entity to help solve these engineering issues
Exactly.
for the assemblies, so that one doesn't assume that however trained or untrained your local sanitary personnel are, you can still have a body that can be fanned out to provide technical assistance.
Yes, currently, if you take the local government scheme of service, there are well-laid job descriptions and the type of personnel that should be hired in every department. So let's take only the waste management department. We have all the type of experts there. You must have this, you must be an engineer, you must be this, your experience must be, but they are not there. They are not there because the conditions of service are not attractive enough for them. You understand? Because putting yourself under the umbrella of local government, there is no way you can earn what you are due in terms of public service. So what I'm saying is that, yes, there must be a body at the center of government who should look into this and decide whether we should go private, complete private when it comes to wastewater treatment, or there must be some special, what do you call it, arrangement to be able to resource the waste management departments of certain expertise, because wastewater treatment is a public good. If you leave it at the hands of the private sector, the citizens cannot afford the cost.
Yes.
That will be
Exactly.
because
Wastewater
it means they will be paying for the capex and the opex at the same time.
What's that?
Capex is the capital expenditure in getting the treatment plant in operation, the investment that you put there. A private man will want a short time, we call internal rate of returns, to recoup that capital expenditure. It cannot wait for 20, 30 years. No. And so it means passing on that expenses to the consumer. And that is where the public good aspect comes in, for government to be able to look for the capex to invest in the infrastructure and also pay for the experts. Just like we have Ghana Education Service. Government is spending heavily to put up the structures called schools, stuffing the laboratories and all, you understand, getting books for them and paying for the tuition fees by way of paying the teachers. So when it comes to wastewater treatment, the same holds. If you leave it at the hand of the private person, yes, he will employ the best experts, the good experts, and put in money to put in the infrastructure. But he will need not more than 10 years to recoup all that investment. So it means the bill that will be churning out to the residents will become what? Unbearable. So the public good aspects will be lost. And it is a public good because, yes, once you put up a structure and infrastructure, the mains must be laid for the households to just connect into it. And then the government is not interested in recouping. It is that people's taxes that are used to get that infrastructure done.
Most of the transportation of wastewater, is it done just by gravity and by force, natural force, or do you have a lot of pumping station capacities?
So it depends on the terrain. If the topography will not allow for gravitational flow, then it is best to engineer the area such that you will have few pumping stations to lift the wastewater from the low depressions to the final treatment plant. If you don't do that, and you have to put in a lot of pumping stations, it increases the operational cost because you have to spend heavily in maintaining the pumps, replacing the pumps, and also the entire reticulation. Once you apply pressure through the pipes, the wear and tear becomes very quick as against gravitational flow. The wear and tear will take a long time.
And Accra is relatively flat.
Accra is relatively flat. So you will see that currently in the Accra system, we put the treatment plant at Legon on the hill. And then the houses were engineered to go by gravitational flow. And it is the pumping station that will lift the wastewater by pump straight to the hill. Mm-hmm. And then after treatment, it flows back from the hill by gravity into the final outfall.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Good. So now another thing I wanted to ask you was, you worked in the city of Tema.
Yes.
And Tema has a unique form of governance structure. It was a city that was planned during the Nkrumah era. All the land was put under this authority called TDC, the Tema Development Corporation. And later on, the assembly system came, whereby Tema Municipal Assembly was also introduced. I know TMA, Tema Municipal Authority, TDC, Tema Development Corporation, had it such that all lands were under their management and all lands were subject to them approving the sale of those lands. So they had a relatively easier method through which to collect levies. How is that any different from, and I'm assuming it's a bit different from what you would, let's say, find in Accra, because Accra, everything is left to the market. Whereas in Tema, there's a bit of a regulatory siphon or a regulatory meter to make sure that revenues are better collected in Tema. So as the time that you worked there, did the same system happen before and or after or during your tenure? You remember you mentioned that at some point sewage got removed from water.
Yes.
At the time that you were there, did that have any bearing?
Yes. So to everything there are pros and cons. At the time TDC was formed, the Decentralization Act was not in place. So Tema was having a unique system of governance where, all these state-acquired lands were under their management. But with the coming into force of the decentralization or local government system, it created some sort of friction between the city authority, which is the Tema Municipal Assembly, and then the TMA, and then the TDC, in the area of development control. Because yes, TDC has the right to sell the land, do the demarcation, and then use their laws, blah, 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 blah. But at the same time, the development control rests with TMA because they must approve that, yes, this area is a first-class residential area, a commercial area, or a zone as an industrial area. That is number one. Number two, the type of buildings, the nature of buildings must be controlled by the works department and then the physical planning department of the local authorities, assemblies. And at the same time, we have such bodies also stated from within TDC. So most of the time, you see TDC task force moving in to enforce development control, and then they go and clash with TMA workforce. You see it all over. Currently, I'm sure that system will be corrected because now it is TDC has changed from the corporation into TDC Development Company or something.
Okay.
So now everything is under the control of TMA when it comes to development control. And TDC is just managing the rent aspect and making sure that the communities are well laid out and planned. And they are part of the statutory planning authority of TMA. So whatever laws that come out, TDC have their representation there, and those frictions are out. It's not only TDC. We also have the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority. Within the enclave of the harbour, it's an authority. Mm-hmm. So they manage anything, any physical development that goes on there. There too, there will be friction. Because yes, GPHA will tell you, yes, this is what we have told our clients to do. But it is in violation of the TMA laws. But with time, I'm sure they will also find a way of going over those hurdles. It's totally different in Accra because for Accra, it is purely the AMA that is fully in charge, and they are held responsible for any development control breaches.
You mentioned the term development control a lot. I do know that in Tema, with the TDC, in my previous discussions with them, their big issue is that most times the onerous of development control punitive measures favor almost the perpetrator, with the idea that that person is relatively disenfranchised. They make that assumption. So somebody gets onto a land, builds something, he's been told to stop building, she's been told to stop building, they continue to build. And at some point, when the court case now gets a hearing, when a court case is finally scheduled, they always err on the side that the person will be unduly punished for something that they did because they were only seeking to have a home. And the need and search for a home is almost sacred in and of itself, even to the expense of the public good or the public's health. So please say something about that, given this comment and the idea of development controls.
Yes, so that's what I said. The development control is a little bit dicey because there are laws. If you allow somebody to build at an unauthorized place and you look unconcerned until the person gets to the lintel or some appreciable level, definitely the human rights people will come in because you have slept on your job and making sure that the person reached that far. So definitely the law will tilt in that person's favor. TDC, I may say, were better in managing that bit because once they see anything springing up, they move in swiftly to make sure that you don't continue. And they do it professionally and devoid of any political things attached. But with the local government system, there is politics attached. So yes, there is Mr. A, but he's politically connected. So the city authority is afraid, quote unquote, the word afraid. Though they are clouded with the power, they are afraid to go in there. So if you are afraid to go and touch Mr. A's property because he's politically connected, Mr. B will also later find some space near Mr. A's place. And with time, you will be overwhelmed. You cannot enforce as against what TDC would have done. So these are the issues I've been saying all along when it comes to development control. It is within the purview of the local authorities. But we cannot rule out what we call political interference. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's what is eating us up. You know, I mentioned the case of Jowulu. It is all because of political hint, because there was no way the colonial master will allow anybody to build or at those marshy areas and water courses. No. But then we took over and then we were unable to do because of political favors.
This podcast has been a production of Learned in Laughter. Vauxhall is a podcast which, among other topics, tackles the ways and means by in which we govern ourselves. Learned in Laughter's Vauxhall is affiliated with Empowering Good Governance magazine, an online publication to be found at www.egg magazine.net.